Hi, I'm Anita Walker, and welcome to Culture Chat. We have got a fun half hour for you today. I am so delighted to have joining us Gretchen Nielsen with From the Top. I was going to say from the top, but I really had to put a different preposition in there, so I didn't sound redundant, Gretchen. Welcome to our program, and you are coming to us from Los Angeles, California. Um,
Exactly.
you're what they call bicoastal. You live on both ends of the country.
I do. I feel very lucky to be an LA resident, but also a Boston resident. So, but right now I'm quarantined in LA at the moment.
Yes, well, we're all quarantined somewhere. So, Gretchen, you came to From the Top just a couple of years ago, and talk to us first of all about what is From the Top for those of us who may not be familiar with this incredible, iconic program that I don't know, it's been around for decades.
20 years. We're just turning 20.
It has to be about 20 years.
Yeah.
So, talk about From the Top, and then sort of your vision. What are you bringing to it?
Thank you. Well, From the Top was founded 20 years ago. It really, when it started, was at the core of it a radio program, and the two founders so wanted to highlight and celebrate young musicians the way young athletes are typically in their school settings. You know, a lot of classical musicians go unseen in their own communities, and this was a way to kind of really put a spotlight on incredible young people and their leadership and artistry. Over the 20 years, we've evolved in different ways. And I would say now, you know, rather than just being a radio program, we really are a youth development program at our heart, because young musicians are leaders in their own right. And as we were working with them, we realized, you know, what we could provide around the artistry that they were already developing on their own was time and space to be reflective about who they are, what they care about, what they think the world needs, work on some career development skills with them, including making radio, and also practicing some of that in community settings and really making an impact in communities. All of our musicians are citizen musicians, and they need the opportunity to try out some of what it feels like and means to be outside of a concert hall setting or a recital setting. And I will say that's a real passion of mine. And bringing that into From the Top in an even more intense way has really shifted our organization to a point where, you know, as we evolve in the next few years, if you come into From the Top, the goal will be that you can really practice that citizen artistry, and radio will be a part of it, rather than coming in to make a radio show and practicing these other things kind of on the side. So
Sounds like what you're saying is From the Top really began as a way to shine a spotlight on this amazing talent, but now you're letting the light inside that talent really radiate out in a much more complete way, and showing the agency of these young, incredible musicians. Before we continue our conversation, I want to welcome everybody else who's joined our Culture Chat today, and remind you, as I do regularly, if you look down there at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button. Please push it. Send us a question, send us a comment, send us a story of your own. Tell us if you've ever heard the young talent on From the Top. And I have to say, it's hard to look past that. And I think that's what's so important about what you're doing. You see and hear these musicians, well, here on the radio, although I've had a chance to see them while they were recording, and you're just blown away by the quality of the talent. And sometimes it's hard to look past that and see there's a real person behind there.
that's right. I mean, the radio show is an attempt to do that as well, because on the radio, they're performing, but they're also storytellers. You know, we prepare them, do a lot of coaching around storytelling. They're in an interview situation. Sometimes they are the storytellers on their own. We have some radio shows where it's almost hostless. And at the same time, I think, to your point, you know, young people who are pursuing excellence are in fact accessible and are still doing the same stuff that we all do all of the time. But, you know, they spend a lot of time focused on their artistry. And that's also another reason why kind of creating, in a sense, a bubble where they can not be competitive. So they're in an environment where they're with a cohort of other young musicians who are really high level performers, and at the same time are not competing against them. So they're able to kind of, as peers, nurture one another, support one another, and learn together about stretching, what it actually means to be an agent of change in the world, whether you're on a stage or in a shelter, you know, or a soup kitchen.
These young musicians, they come from all over the country.
They do. They do. We are based in Boston, and really we're, you know, helped, NEC and WGBH helped birth from the top. So we are situated in Boston and do quite a lot of localized work. We do live programs in Boston and community engagement in Boston, but we are constantly searching for young musicians across the country, and those radio shows then get distributed on NPR and are listened to by about 500,000 people weekly.
So like everybody else, we all are in a very strange, difficult, and different world today in this COVID crisis. And I have been amazed over this past, I think probably 8 weeks that we've been chatting with our friends and colleagues across the Commonwealth at the amazing creativity that can live even in the midst of this virus, and just this drive and passion to make sure that the work goes on and that our communities continually are enriched by the incredible artistry that is coming out of our organization. So you have a couple of things going on, and I love your moment of joy. Talk about that.
Thank you. Well, you know, like all organizations right now, we are, you know, as human beings trying to respond to the world and the needs around us. We were thinking about how we could go. We have a lot of incredible music and also like audio and visual videos in our archives, and thought we might share that on a daily basis with our listeners and constituents. But interestingly, just as we were kind of culling through our archives, we also were getting emails and texts and phone calls from our alums saying, we want to do something, we want to contribute something in this crisis. What can we do? And so really fueled by them, we decided to create this Daily Joy series and asked for young musicians to make joyful videos, something that expresses something beautiful in their world, even right now, in short segments, you know, so it's really bite-sized, a 60 to 90 second video that we've been emailing out daily. We've done 67 of those since March 16th. And then we extended them on Friday afternoons or Friday evenings at 6 o'clock Eastern time. We are broadcasting from young musicians' homes, a Facebook Live concert.
So these videos, and of course, we're going to show you a couple of them. These were made entirely by your youth and your alums, right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's their creativity, their vision. It is fueled by them, really and truly.
I have to say, I mean, they look like they were professionally made. Not that your musicians aren't a professional. Let's just take a look at this first one. And Carmen, I know you have it queued up. This is the one with the
Hello, I didn't see you there. My name is Alvin, and I'm a percussionist from Potomac, Maryland. I've gotten to know my computer pretty well these last few weeks because of online classes, and I'm excited to show you all what I have learned.
amazing. For those of us who've been staring at Zoom meetings. Wow, how did that come out of this little creature that I've been sharing space with? So I'll play the dummy because I'm so good at it. What were we seeing there? Was he literally playing that music on his laptop, or what's going on there?
Yeah, he created a program that behaved like a marimba. So since he didn't have access to an actual marimba in his home, he created one on his computer.
Oh, this is absolutely phenomenal. So
Yeah.
is this an alum or a current student in the program?
Well, you know, the way From the Top works is we get together over long weekends or kind of week-long retreats. And so you become an alum rather quickly. So he is an alum of our program, and our alums span anywhere from age 8 or 9, right after they've been on the program and within our engagement series, and they extend now up to about almost age 40. So.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's
Yep.
fantastic. Reminder to everybody, because I know you have questions just like I did, and I want to really dig in deep to know how you do that, but we won't get that technical today. But do send us questions on the Q&A button, comments about what you're seeing and hearing. And the next little daily bit of joy coming out of From the Top, I think probably is going to be your favorite, although I did love the laptop one. But anytime you put a 4-legged creature with fur in a video, it goes viral. Tell us what we're about to see, Gretchen.
Well, one of our musicians who lives in Colorado, wonderful classical guitarist who I met about 1.5 years ago, decided to create a piece that is a duet for guitar and dog.
No, I want, in case you missed that, a duet for guitar and dog.
Hello, I'm Gwyneth. I play guitar, and this is Heidi. We're here from Denver, and Heidi is my dog, and she brings me a lot of joy. And sometimes we like to make music together. And so we're going to play an excerpt from Napoleon Coast's Rondo de Concert, arranged for guitar and dog. Ready?
Gretchen, it sounds like you're going to have a whole new series just of pet performances.
I know. Tell me about it. I have to tell you, these have surprised us, meaning one, we love personally and our, on our team, love connecting with our alums, but they are really, I think, bringing the joy and speaking to people. I got some stats from my team. We, since sending these out, we have 1,000 new email subscribers. So 3 times as many as subscribed just in our past year. So that's pretty significant. Through these, we've also received, well, we've developed 200 new donors. So in response to those, people are sending us donations, and it's very clearly linked to the Daily Joys. Our YouTube viewership, which is linked to these, when we take Daily Joy into the Facebook Live setting, since March 16th, which is when we began the Daily Joy series, our videos have been watched almost 900,000 times, which reflects over 21,000 hours of watch time. It's a 75% increase over the same period last year. So it's interesting, it's homemade DIY stuff that it's really connecting with the public.
So your original purpose really was to continue to engage your young people and to put these moments out there. Had you any expectation that these other unintended positive consequences would result?
Not really. I mean, it really was a kind of human response and what we could do. And certainly, From the Top at its core has been a platform for young musicians to reach far and wide, across the world, frankly, through radio. And so this was just another way for us to, have a platform that would amplify their voices, their stories, and in this case, their joy. So that was the impulse, and this is a great outcome.
This is fantastic. We do we do have a question, and it's
Yeah.
from I know that you know, Eric Holmgren.
Oh, hi, Eric.
He, by the way, he does have a dog and a saxophone, so I'm going to be shortly, Eric. He asks, what are you seeing the long-term impacts of COVID-19? Is it accelerating change? You talked about the young people as change agents.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, interestingly, as we were embarking into our fiscal year 21, COVID showed up, right? And we were beginning to make business model changes to reflect more of that leadership training, the community engagement, career development piece that I was talking about. And honestly, this period has accelerated that, in part because we're learning so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. You just disappeared from my screen. There you are. In part because we're learning so much from Daily Joys and from some of the remote work that we're doing in radio right now, but also because what we're noticing with young musicians is that they're really longing to connect to one another. They need a network. They have, so few opportunities at this point to perform and to practice leadership and community engagement. And we're forging ahead in that way despite COVID. One of the things that we've been doing as we've been creating this new remote radio is we have leadership workshops on Zoom, as many people are doing school and things like that. But just, was it yesterday? Yesterday and the day before, we had prepared for a community engagement two sets of interactive concerts that were streamed kind of on closed circuit television into a children's hospital in Colorado. And Ryan Seacrest has a foundation that sets up these studios. So it's kind of like, it's a television or it's kind of like radio studio in these children's hospitals. And normally patients come into those studios and then they also project out into the rooms. In this case, it was just us and the kind of switchboard operator, and kids could call in questions to our young musicians. And it, we have to learn how to, I think, exist in this new environment because it's going to be some time until we can reconnect and gather. And so it was an interesting exercise in playing, our young musicians were playing to the screen, had very little feedback. They were not seeing anybody except for us. And in the reflection after these sessions, one of the questions that we posed was, well, what is this community engagement if your community cannot engage with you? And I think it's an important discussion to have at this time. And, some of the answers that we got back were really interesting. It's about, trusting yourself as an artist, knowing that you have power to make change even if you can't see it in front of you and you're not getting that feedback. Knowing that you have, an extraordinary gift to send love and a healing property out into the world. And that not seeing people, not being able to play face to face with in front of an audience may be the future for some time. And so how do we build muscle around that and find meaning in that? It's a really interesting question.
It's the question everybody is asking, whether you're a young person, whether you're a teaching artist, teaching through Zoom, whether you're an ensemble, trying to figure out how to get together remotely. But what I just heard you say so strongly is that agency can manifest in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. And this is just a different exhibition of agency. But it's really built on that platform of trust, that since I can't see you and touch you and you have those human feedback loops, we're having to trust that they're there and know that I have the agency to make a difference with my music, even if I can't see it right away. That's amazing. That's tough. That's talk about living in a world of ambiguity. Now, there's another thing you're doing, and I just love the name of it. I mean, I just love the whole idea of it. And we're going to talk about it while we show a little bit of video of it coming into taking shape. And it's called, all right, we were all kids once. Who didn't make a blanket fort? Tell us about your blanket fort and how did you come up with that name?
Well, you know, like you, our studios for creating high quality radio are now at home. And one of the things that happened for us right at the beginning of COVID is we thought, well, we'll send young musicians into studios with, you know, artistic collaborators. And that was shut down very quickly because we're all at home. So our audio engineers and staff put together recording kits, big boxes that got shipped to them. And, you know, we not only needed to help them understand how to set up that equipment. So we were doing some Zoom, you know, setup interactive calls with them, but we also needed them to be in a space where the sound could work, and setting up a blanket fort was the way to do that. And what you're seeing right now is this incredible bassist in Philadelphia, Braden Ellis, and Braden and his parents put together this blanket fort in their living room, and they made it so beautiful. Not every blanket fort was quite as beautiful as this, but the super cool thing about this process, again, kind of an unintended consequence, a wonderful outcome, is that, you know, when we get together in person with young musicians, their parents or one of their parents is usually with them. We do some discussions with parents and kind of workshops with them. But in this case, they weren't just sitting around having conversations with us and us learning from them and them learning from us. They were our collaborators. They were our techies during the recording sessions. They obviously were like assistants in setting up these blanket forts. They were our documentarians. So it's interesting because we've, in a sense, built this new community of collaborators and done some real professional development, not only with parents, but young musicians in terms of making high quality recordings at home.
You know, there is something that I'm noticing through my regular Zoom meetings. We're going into people's homes. I mean, there's always been sort of a little bit of a veil. We know people in the workplace, we know people in the concert hall, we know people in the rehearsal centers or in schools, but this crossing that veil into people's homes, I think, has created a different dynamic. Do you think so?
I do. I mean, it was interesting just yesterday when we did this concert for children in that hospital. We talked about, like, how do you connect with people when you can't see them? And one of the things that we really had a discussion about was environment. Like, these kids are in a hospital, they're not at home. And so how can you help invite them into your space, make it really personal? A lot of them were in their bedrooms. And so they were, you know, able to kind of help a young person see into their lives. A few of them brought their animals into the room too. You know, we talked about how that's important to all of us and to reflect that. And I do think there is something kind of wonderful about connecting on a really, really human and personal level because of your environment, even if it's virtual.
And the whole idea that you're actually within that environment that we're all stuck in and sequestered in, and that we've seen the four walls of. When I think about a blanket fort, I also think, you know, as a little kid, it was like a safe space. It was where you crawled in and you felt cozy and protected. It was your fort, and you were defending it. I mean, that connotation is really there too for the young people when they build it themselves with their family and master the construction. That's pretty cool to start with. But then when they're in it, I almost wonder if they feel different making music in a blanket fort.
I wonder too. It's so funny. We'll have to ask our second cohort that question. I think one of the things, you know, we recognized in working with them in these situations is it's, you know, it's kind of cool and fun to set up these blanket forts and to work with all of this equipment that's new. At the same time, it's stressful. You know, as an artist, you want to be able to express yourself, like truly make music, but you're so aware of the setup and then the gear and all of that. And so that was one of the things that was a balance. You know, our staff really had to coach young musicians to, like, once it was set up, like, let go, just enjoy it, you know, and allow your parents to be your techies.
And do they all have those cool lights and that comfy chair?
Not all of them, no. One of them used like one of those cat towers, you know, had a blanket over that. One had to prop up a computer with a pot. You know, my computer is sitting on a pot right now here in my kitchen. So it's kind of, it is very DIY. It's a little like Braden and his family went all out, and we were so excited about that. But, you know, blanket forts can be super simple.
It used to be, for me, it was a card table with the blanket on top.
There you go. That sounds about right.
We have about 4 minutes left, and before we run out of time, since everything you've shown us is so amazing and awesome, I want to make sure that people can follow up and get some more moments of joy. You said you have, what, dozens and dozens of them. How can people find them, and are you going to continue to produce them regularly?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, they can find them on our website. It's you know, one of the first things that pops up, and you can search. There's a page where you have almost 60 of them right now. In terms of the continuation, we're trying to figure that out. I think, like lots of people, we want to provide what is needed in that moment. And so once we notice that viewership or you know, the clicks are going down, we're already talking about what the next phase might look like. Is it that we do fewer? Is it that we're shifting up the focus of them? We're also really talking to our musicians to figure out what they want to provide and where they are. You know, we're all kind of in this moment of what's next. We're all kind of, it's still foggy. So, you know, how do we provide the best support and platform we can for young musicians at this juncture, now that a lot of them are learning about making music at home? And so what's the next level of that? How can we support them?
So I hate to ever say anything good about COVID, but I will say, you know, the air is cleaner, and there are some ramifications to all of our changes in behavior. When you're about 2 years into a job, usually you're just, now you got your feet under your ground and ready to roll out your vision. And of course, here comes COVID. Has COVID kind of recalibrated what your long view is for From the Top?
I don't know if it's done that exactly. I will say, you know, the notion of acceleration of what the vision was before is definitely there. I think what I've also noticed is, you know, we are an organization totally driven by youth, and we've been talking so much more to a larger subset of our alums. And I'm thinking a lot about what does youth voice mean within an organization? You know, we have some formal and some informal structures of youth leadership, but this is a time when I'm thinking a lot about what that means for the future.
So before we wrap up, we do have one more entry into our Q&A, and it's from Janet Fagan. And she says she'd love to share that you can also hear any From the Top show by way of the website or the podcast and Instagram and Facebook. Thank you, Janet, for being on top of it so we don't beat. And I'm telling you, if you are at home and you are just like, these walls are closing in on me and I've had enough of this room I'm sitting in, you just dial up From the Top, get a moment of joy, listen to a podcast, get a little music in your life.
Okay, thank you.
Gretchen, thank you so much for sharing with us your amazing videos, and thank you for all you are doing to make this time a little bit more joyful, at least for a few minutes a day. Thank you so much.
And back at you. I mean, I've so enjoyed these conversations. I've watched quite a few of them. I'm just really, I am so amazed by the work that's going on in the arts and culture community in Massachusetts and far beyond. So thank you for.
Resilience is our middle name, so we're not Thank you. Enjoy LA, but come back to Boston soon, okay?
As soon as I can, I'll be there.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.